So this is indeed, you're absolutely right, a very complex concept, gu, and relatedly, gui, demons or ghosts. So which I discussed these various concepts in one chapter of the book. And so, and this in the broad sense, when you think of medicine and religion, spirituality, and folk religions, and scholars like Michael Stanley Baker, Peter Saguaro, they discuss this, Taoist medicine, Buddhist medicine, quite a lot. And so my attention here is more on the poison connection. And so, and particularly from the perspective of etiology, which is the cause of illness. And this kind of comes back to your early mentioning of this idea of yidu gongdu, right? So use poison to attack poison, right? So when we think about, for example, applying potent medicine to cure illness, and that illness is often imagined or conceived as something concrete inside the body, concrete, specific, in the forms of demons, in the forms of this kind of worms, and worms has a very close connection to gu poison. Right? So and that's the connection. Only the powerful substances can eliminate these pathological agents inside the body. That's one way to think about the rationale of yidu gongdu. Gu is something, it's very ancient. Right? You find the character in oracle bones, actually. And it has a lot of different meanings, as you already point out. In the pre-Han text, you find it's referred to delusion, chaos, and there's also a connection to woman, female delusion. It's very negatively portrayed in this sense. Women tend to have this power to delude men, and that already in some of the earliest texts, like Zuo Zhuan, the Zuo commentary, and then later, from the Han period on, you'll find this very strong connection between gu and worms, actually, gu and worms. And the manipulator of the gu, and you can translate it the witchcraft in that sense, because it's often, this kind of manipulator are often believed to be women, and they manipulate in the famous text, Zhu Bingyuan Hou Lun, that's in the early 7th century, that I think the previous interviewees, Dolly Yang, had talked about that text. There is a section on gu preparation, right? That is one way to think about gu is put a bunch of vermins, poison vermins together and letting them freely devour each other. And then eventually you have this, I don't know, queen or king of the vermins, one single, vermin left, and that one, once grind to powder, put into food, it can poison people, can harm people, right? So that kind of magic or witchcraft type of poisoning during the Sui and Tang period was very prominent and often believed to be a woman involved. And so that's one way to think about gu as a witchcraft, as a sort of shamanistic practice involving poisons. Although there's a lot of text talking about gu, we can never really nail down, number one, who are really these gu poisoners. We don't really know their identity, partly because they are from the lower echelon of society, women, illiterate. So you only see these people from the hostile sources of the people who accuse them, actually, the government, the physicians, the elites people, they want to eliminate them, at least banish them. So, and we do find, my point here is that, it's really hard to nail down what gu actually is. So, we know it's associated with magic and, witchcraft or, shamanistic practice. But we know for sure is that it created anxiety inside the social body, actually. So people are concerned that this can harm them, sometimes over a distance. So, and the action or the reaction toward gu practitioners. That was real from the government, from the people, at the center of the empire. They did implement stringent policies to try to banish, if not eliminate, these dangerous manners.
That story of what was it, the cat spirit or cat lady, it reminded me a little bit of the Salem witch trials in a way. Like they really, anyway, the cultural reaction to these sorts of stories seemed to be very widespread and quite so. Yeah, it's interesting to hear this perspective.
Right. Thank you for that connection, Daniel. That's why I use the word witchcraft to try to kind of invoke that kind of the connection. That's right. So it is one. So this is one way I interpreted 以毒攻毒. Back to the term 以毒攻毒, right? So it actually had dual meanings, right? On the one hand, you use powerful poisons to eliminate, these kind of worms or demons inside the physical body. But on the other hand, you can consider 以毒攻毒 as the government or state implement stringent policies, just like powerful medicines, right, to eliminate these dangerous social entities, these people, social groups, out of a political body, right? So push them to the margin. And of course, Gu is never entirely eliminated. I'll say, and they were pushed away from the Tang period on. They pushed to the south, and later to the southwest. And later, from the Ming-Qing period on, it became associated with minority people in China, like Miao people in the southwest. And that association still is still existing today, actually. So, and there is one anthropologist I really like. His name is Wang Mingke in Taiwan. He just recently published a book on this kind of practice in that region of China, and really connected to the witchcraft, this kind of practice in the Western culture. I find it quite interesting.
What's the name of the book? I'd love to get a copy. You can tell me later. It's okay. I'm very curious.
I think cat is there in the title.
Okay.
Yeah. 猫女 or 猫毒, something like that. Yeah, it's in Chinese. Yeah. So
cool.
But it's excellent. I really like his work, and yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. I found it really interesting, the development of this kind of the gui, the idea of it, with it starting with a kind of a moralistic kind of idea as well, coming from the more Taoist side of things, and people developing these illness from moral shortcomings, and then later moving. I think it was Chow Yuen Feng, you said, who sort of developed this idea into something more having a weak body, and these things being able to come into it. I thought this was really interesting, because I've talked to some Taoists who practice medicine, and one of them in particular sort of recently married, like he's still around today, but married these two ideas, and the idea that if you behave immorally, you'll do things that will get you to have a weak body, and then these things will come in. So you have to address both the weak body and your behavior. I thought that these ideas are still floating around today in China, and they're still in the culture. I thought it was fascinating. But also the idea of it being somewhat associated with epidemics as well. So, which is also a thing where, we've got an epidemic going on now, but
that's right.
It's still very relevant. I wonder if you had thoughts on this. And
so it's interesting that you mentioned the Chow Yuen Feng's book. Of course, I mean, there's a lot of medical texts at the time, and in that chapter, I just, from the perspective of thinking of poisons and demons, you do find, demons appear quite a lot, not just in medical texts, but also in religious texts, like Taoist texts. And there, I think you're right that there is a very strong sense of, the moral failings of the individual is responsible for the invasion of the demon. And so, and there's a story actually. I don't think this story is in my book, but I'd love to share with you. This story is actually related to this narrative called jealous wife narrative that you find it quite popular during the 6th dynasty and early Tang, that there is this jealous wife who is very jealous, and so her husband got another maiden, and he is very enamored by this maiden, and so his wife get angry and just cut off her tongue. And so, and a few days later, her own tongue becomes fester. So, and she's in pain. And then there's a Taoist master. I said the Buddhist monk. It's the Buddhist monk show up, and the first thing the Buddhist monk tell her is that you have to repent. There's a wrongdoing, right? This is morally wrong. You did it to this maiden. You have to repent, and she did. And then after that, the monk cast the incantation toward her mouth, and then 2 snakes slithered out of her mouth. And then the monk cast further incantation onto those snakes, and they fell onto the ground and then died. And then after that, the wife recovers. You can see that this story combines 2 components. One is the ontological understanding of disease. That is, you have something specific inside the body. And then in this case, it's not really the powerful medicine, it's really the powerful word manifested by the incantation that forced these poisonous entities out of the body in the form of a snake. And then the second one, echoing what you said, is the moral teaching. The moral teaching is really the key of this lesson. The wife has to repent first before being able to be cured. Right? So, and that's I find it's a very interesting story. Combine this 2 way of, we may say today that one is more medical, one is more religious, but at the time it's beautifully combined into the same narrative. Right?
Yeah, no, it's amazing. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just want to quickly say something about epidemics, because this is something, I mean, when I was writing that part of the book, we haven't entered this ongoing epidemic yet, but I do find that demons appeared quite a lot in that context as well. Swarms of demons descended from the sexual world, and they invaded human world. This is very prominent in both the Buddhist and Taoist texts. 5th century, 6th century, often depicted as sort of apocalyptic scene there, and then the religious teaching becomes something necessary as a salvation, following the religious, practice, incantation. So in that sense, it is quite, and it's perhaps not surprising that during those moments, we do have some evidence, independent evidence, for example, the environmental change, the rise of famine, and the rampant epidemics at the time is all correlated together. That's one way people imagine the world. It's because of the proliferation of these demonic entities that were believed to have responsible for epidemics. And using poisons is one way to treat epidemics. And this is one story told by the famous physician Sun Simiao, actually. So in one of his collections, medical collections, he told the story that, to try to defeat these demons or epidemics they bring into the world, not only a person can use powerful poisons, ingest poisons to protect themselves, and sometimes they can also burn these kind of medicines in a house, and basically the smoke emitted by it can be a repellent, basically, to dispel these malign entities, keep them at bay, basically. So you can imagine medicine can be used in multiple ways at a time, not just ingestion.
Fumigation, this sort of
fumigation,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
Fumigation, right?
That's-
So,
so
cleaning
similar
the
to
environment.
Yeah, so like the incense they use in the churches, this kind of thing, it's maybe a similar kind of function. It's
Right.
very interesting.
Right. Exactly.
If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe.